Jane Boldman.
Been sworn in.
I have.
President Mason.
I am not a resident of Mason County, however, I represent an organization that has members in Mason County. First, I want to start. My name is Lane Boldman. I'm with the Kentucky Conservation Committee. But I want to first thank you all for coming out. And you have a lovely, wonderful community, and you have an excellent community that knows how to participate. And I'm sorry that you've had to stay this long just to be represented. My family grew up across the river. You have wonderful assets that aren't just industrial like your river, and you have a lot of history, and I really respect that. So. Is that clear?
It's not working. Oh. Away.
Oh, you're clicking from there?
Well, I'm trying to, but I might
Okay.
have to away. You might have to.
Okay. We can get it behind me. I was afraid of that. Almost didn't do slides. Didn't want to waste your time much longer. So I am going to speak to the ordinance, but I'm just going to say, Kentucky Conservation Committee, we are the longest running state-based conservation nonprofit in Kentucky, with providing a trusted voice at the Capitol. So we spend a lot of time in Frankfurt, and we work with state government a lot. And so my focus is going to be mostly on that. So, you know a lot of this stuff already, the background, the growing concerns over data centers. I don't need to explain that to you. I'm sorry, I'm coughing too much, I waited too long. But, you know some of the impacts here, so I'm going to skip through. The growing calls in a lot of communities are being raised now for moratoriums on these developments. Just across the river in Ohio, this just came out this week, article in the Ohio Capital Journal, monitoring analytics, independent PJM market monitor wants the Federal Regulatory Commission to clarify that PJM can and should halt data center interconnection if it does not have adequate power. They're getting overwhelmed with these now. Ohio's had more than 200 data centers already. So when you do your planning, you need to think about this. You're setting the stage for one, but you could have a lot more in a very short period of time, and you need to think about that when you're dealing with your ordinance. Next slide. Environmental groups are chiming in significantly. More than 200 environmental groups have demanded a national moratorium on new data centers in the U.S. Concerns around escalating electricity bills, worsening the climate crisis, you know all this already. Groups that urge members of Congress to halt the proliferation of energy-hungry data centers. So the question is, are state and federal laws providing enough adequate protection? Next. No, not enough. So this is something you need to think about. You're not being protected enough. And so you have to make sure your ordinance is super protected. Next slide. So I'm going to just mention a little bit about how did we get here in the first place. Do you think the regulations are protective enough? Do you think your lawmakers are looking out for you? No. Not as much as they should, right? Here's a list of bills from 2019 to 2025 that were pro-data center or pro blockchain technology or pro-crypto mining. Okay, a lot of tax breaks, a lot of exemptions on use of energy, a lot of tax breaks on the capital investments, and I hope these are written into the record. Big projects started coming in the last legislative session. HB8 gave sales tax breaks on data center equipment. If a data center owner or operator makes a capital investment of at least $450 million, or a project organizer invests at least $150 million. In 2025, they expanded the sales and use tax exemptions for qualified data centers in Kentucky. So they're getting tax breaks that are bringing these in to the state. You know this. But they're also bringing in pollution. So the next slide. No, back up, sorry. In 2025, House Bill 346, among its provisions, defined the use of emergency stationary internal combustion engines. Okay, as you know, a lot of you know already, these are generators that go on top of the data centers, right? They have no time limit on use of emergency situations. They can operate a maximum of 50 hours per calendar year for non-emergency situations. You know, what's the definition of an emergency situation, right? They want to keep the power going on 24/7. These generators are there to allow that to happen. As soon as this bill passed, your project started popping up, okay? And these are not air pollution friendly, right? So, also in 2025, House Bill 137 constrained the ability for citizens to do citizen-based evidence collection for monitoring air quality. So, more pollution, more generators, less opportunity for citizens to monitor it. Okay, next slide. Then at the federal level, we've had pro-data center presidential actions and executive orders, removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence, passed executive action in January 2025. One called Accelerating Federal Permitting of Data Center Infrastructure, Executive Order, July 2025. The executive branch is expected to sign a new executive order overriding state approvals and oversight on artificial intelligence regulations. So, next slide. So, lack of state and federal actions calls for strong local actions. This is where you come in. So, we've looked at the suggestions for the ordinance. We want to make sure that you do an environmental impact assessment with specifics, like Elisa brought up, detailed. You need to do an environmental justice impact assessment. These kind of projects tend to cluster in communities that don't have as much power for its citizens, low income, communities of color, and we don't want to see that happen. We want to make sure that if you do a proper environmental justice impact assessment, that you can address the situation, that you can mandate rules to make sure that some communities are not impacted far more than others. And then, as Elisa mentioned, the community benefits agreements. Very important. Next slide. Water issues. Oh, back one. Yeah. That's all right. Go ahead. I'll go with that.
It's okay, I'm good. Is that right?
No, next one. Sorry.
One more?
Water issues. Okay, so impact on water resources. So I'm glad to hear them say that this will be a closed loop system, it'll be water efficient. We want to see that there are technologies to make these things have less impact. Appreciate that. But this is being located by the river. We heard a lot about investments in infrastructure upgrades for water. Obviously, there's going to be water impacts, right? So, according to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute this year, large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons per day, equivalent to the water use of a town populated by 10,000 to 50,000 people. Now, is that going to be the case with this one? Well, then you need to check and make sure that what they're saying is correct. Data center water usage closely parallels energy usage and carbon emissions. For fewer than 1/3 of data center operators track their water consumption. You need to make sure that the tracking of the water consumption happens. Okay? Approximately 80% of the water, typically fresh water, withdrawn by data centers evaporates, with the remaining water discharged into municipal wastewater facilities. The large volume of wastewater from data centers may overwhelm existing local facilities, which were not designed to handle such a high volume. So again, right now, you're hearing that these are going to be very water friendly. You need to make sure that that's the case. Okay. So, impact on water resources, next slide. Yeah. More on, no, back up one. Sorry. Data centers also use a variety of chemicals, this hasn't been talked about much, in their cooling system that contaminates water as it works through the data center cooling system. These include refrigerants, such as PFAS chemicals, those are also known as forever chemicals, okay, as well as corrosion inhibitors. So in multiple legislative sessions, again, we focus on legislative issues. In multiple legislative sessions as recently as 2025, lawmakers failed to even hear legislation to set drinking water limits and monitor discharges for PFAS forever chemicals. They won't even hear it. In 2025, lawmakers passed Senate Bill 89, a bad water bill limiting the definition of water or waters of the Commonwealth to waters of the U.S., in other words, to defer to the federal standards. That just passed. Okay, do you think the federal standards are okay better than your own standards? Well, guess what? The federal standards are expected to weaken via what is known as the Permit Act. That is out there right now, H.R. 3898, federal legislation. Vote is expected later this week. So, you defer your water quality to the federal standard. The federal standard is probably going to get weakened. So, next. Okay. Let's talk about air quality issues for a second. Compounding the existing pollution problems you already have. Okay, next. Spurlock is obviously a source of pollution, already has a history of Clean Air Act violations. The addition of multiple data center diesel backup generators would emit significant amounts of PM 2.5 and NOx, especially during testing and outages, impacting local air quality. These are significant pollutants impacting respiratory and cardiovascular issues. We recommend strengthening the local requirements on the use of diesel backup generators. When this bill passed this last session, I don't think anyone anticipated just how many generators we're talking about. We're talking about hundreds. Even though they don't run long, it doesn't matter, you've got multiple. Okay. And then, next slide, we'll talk again about the community impacts. Really important for you to have detailed, strong community benefits agreements. You need that environmental justice assessment. And then, as Elisa said, you need to act on it. So, next slide. Community benefit agreements are legally binding contracts. Okay, so you need to get all the details in there. You need to create your community's vision and goals. You need to consider the impact the development will have in your community. You need to identify any new benefit needs that will ensure your community is supported and any harm is mitigated or removed. You can look up information on community benefit agreements in many places, so I urge you to do that. Next, then also the environmental justice impact assessment. That's a specialized analysis within the standard of the environmental impact assessment process focused on identifying if a proposed project disproportionately harms low-income, minority, or other populations. So we'd like you to make sure identify those impacts, assess cumulative impacts, okay? You drive equitable outcomes for your community. So we urge you to make sure and do all this. You're welcome to contact us with any questions about any of these. We're here and we will continue to monitor what's happening at the state level and the cabinet to ensure that we are getting better laws to protect you. But what I want to urge here is that your local ordinances are what's going to drive this. We can't assume that the state, the Fed, is going to be watching out for you. So I just want to say again, you've got a lovely community. You have wonderful assets. I grew up not far from the river here, and I know you have the regulations on outdoor recreation and other assets that would truly be benefits to your community. You can have data centers in that mix, but you have to be vigilant about ensuring that this industry that is overwhelming states like Ohio, which you'll notice, are really taking care of you, and we're not just tossing things away for the sake of winning a race. I would hate to see this community lose the charm and the farms and the outdoor recreation opportunities that you have. You have great assets that don't need to go just to data centers. So with that, I think